This week on r/tales from the front desk.
I have crippling depression.
Stay till the end to find out what happens when. I tried to warn someone not to dispute his no-show charge, but they never listen. "20-something-year-old calls mommy because she was mistreated." 10-year hotel vet, long-time lurker in this sub, first time to post. I hear it's therapeutic. Let's find out. The other night I had a guest come down to the lobby and sit and begin to listen to music on her phone. She didn't have headphones in, and the music was very loud with explicit lyrics, but it was 11 at night and fairly slow and I didn't want to give her trouble, so I let it go on for about 10 minutes. Eventually the lounge closed and 3-4 stragglers came walking through the lobby back to their rooms. A few glanced between me and her with a strange look. I just raised my eyebrows to them in acknowledgement, but at this point it still didn't seem like a huge problem and it wasn't bothering me. Minutes later one of my last arrivals comes in. It's an older lady with the air of someone who's definitely going to leave a review with nothing but complaints, and right off the bat the music from the phone gets ridiculously explicit. I'm hurrying to check this woman in as fast as possible while she's constantly evil-eyeing the lady on the couch and shaking her head in disappointment at me. I get her checked in, and she leaves for the room, and at this point I realize I have to do something, so I politely address the lady on the couch. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but the sound on the phone will have to be off while you're in the lobby." She shrugged, got up, and walked to her room. That actually went well, right? Cut to the next night. I had ran to the kitchen for about 5 minutes to help the restaurant staff close a few things down for the night, and as I'm walking back to the desk I notice the same lady sitting on the couch, and in a chair next to her is a guy about her age. They both appear to be in their mid-20s, way too old for childish behavior, but I immediately knew that's what I was about to get. As I say hi to them, I notice the girl look at the guy and nod. He nods in return. It was obviously an attempt at clandestinely saying, "Yep, that's the guy." Oh good, what's this gonna be? I get behind the desk and brace for what these two are about to try to do. The guy asks the girl something along the line of, "Hey, have you heard such and such song?" He's saying it loud enough for me to hear, in a tone that is so obviously planned and staged. He then says he'll play it for her, and immediately starts blasting some weird-ass song from a genre of music I can only describe as hardcore circus-themed EDM, and every other word is frick, shit, or ass. I'm not going to let this get to the point it did the night before, so I immediately and politely tell the guy the sound has to be off. He replies with, "I'm not going to turn it off, but I'll turn it down some." I shut him down and say that no, it needs to be off. He obliges, then begins having a conversation with the girl that is, again, aimed at me. They are basically throwing backhanded insults my way just loud enough for me to hear and acting like they are having a private conversation. At one point the woman actually calls her mum on her cell phone and begins to tell her how badly the hotel is mistreating her. Whatever, I'm not easily offended and I've seen my fair share of assholes. Eventually someone coming from the lounge passes through the lobby while talking to someone on his cell phone. The lady yells at him and tells him he is being too loud on his phone and is going to get kicked out. That was enough for me. "Now you're messing with business, you've got to go." I tell them both they are going to need to go to their rooms for the night. They ignore me and act like they didn't hear, so I picked up the phone and pretended to dial security. Security doesn't actually have a phone, they have a radio, but I was hoping the bluff alone would work. It did, and they both got up quickly and scurried off to their room. I got a call from my GM the next day asking me what had happened with these guests. He said that the girl's mum drove to the hotel and demanded to see a manager and screamed for 15 minutes at how rude I had been. I told my GM what had happened and we shared a laugh. He told me if I had any more issues to just go straight to the cops and have them escorted off the property. Then came night 3. The lady came back down to the lobby holding hands with another girl. They both made sure to hold their hands up so that I could see it and shoot me a passive-aggressive grin. I currently live up north, but I'm from the south and have a thick accent that most people immediately pick up on. I honestly believed that they were trying to bait me into saying or doing something homophobic. assuming that I must be a stereotypical hardcore Southern Christian gay hat-and Klansman or something. They stood at our local brochure cabinet and browsed while talking under their breath. Not loud enough for me to hear, but I'm sure it was aimed at me. A few minutes later the guy joins them and the conversation becomes loud enough for me to hear, and it's definitely more insults thrown my way. At this point I decided it was enough. I told them they were going to need to return to their rooms or I would have security escort them off the premises. They demanded to know why, and I told them the truth as best as I could put it. Because none of you have emotionally matured past middle school and I won't sit here and be disrespected for a second night, because you fail to understand why we can't have curse words blaring in a place of business. The girl said something along the lines of, "Did you not learn your lesson today? I guess I'll have to call my mum again." I told her to go ahead, her mum could be escorted off the property as well, and they stormed off to their room. Got a call from my GM the next day. Mommy had been back. He had promptly ended their reservation a day early. I love my grams.
Catch me outside, how about that?
Dinner date with a guest.
Catch me outside, how about that?
Okay, wow. I did not expect this story to blow up like this. Thank you all for your kind comments. I am going to try to answer some of you. This story took place 4 years ago when I was 19. I lost my mum when I was 6 and despite the young age my memories of that time are very vivid. I remember the lack of kindness that seemed to be everywhere. It was also the first time that I saw my father cry. This guest reminded me of that time and I wanted to make sure he knew he wasn't alone. I was raised in the hospitality industry. My dad buys old hotels, motels and fixes them up then sells them again. During the fix-up process he keeps them operating like normal hotels. As his oldest child it was usually my responsibility to help keep things running. So I thought I'd share some of my favorite tales. This one takes place after I decided to stretch my wings and work for a hotel not owned by my family. I was alternating between second and third shift at this hotel. Now at the time I had my hair dyed a ridiculously bright red, like fire truck red, and while my boss had been hesitant to let me keep it I never got anything from compliments from guests. This particular hotel was located near a hospital and offered a discount and shuttle service for people with relatives at the hospital. During one of my second shifts this older man comes to check in. He's staying for a week with the hospital rate and looks very distressed. His English isn't great, but he does his best. Several times during the process he mentions how much he likes my hair. He also got very talkative about why he was staying there. Since it was a slow night I indulged him. Turns out that his wife had been flown to our hospital from Puerto Rico. After he checked in he went to the hospital to check on his wife and stayed there for a while. I was still on shift when he returned and he asked me where he could get some food. I gave him a list of restaurants that delivered to us. He asked which was my favorite and what I liked to eat there, then wandered off to make his call, then lingered around the lobby waiting for the delivery. When the delivery showed up he brought his food to the desk and set a box in front of me. He told me that he hadn't eaten dinner alone in 50 years and he wasn't ready to start. He had ordered the food that I told him was my favorite and was hoping that I'd be able to eat with him. Since my relief had showed up already I clocked out early and sat in the breakfast room with the guest to eat our food. Every night after that was the same thing. He'd come home from the hospital and ask me to order food for him so he'd get the front desk discount and I'd order my own food or warm up whatever I brought. His wife wasn't doing good and he ended up having to stay with us for almost 2 months. We had dinner together every night. I lived 2 blocks away and would come in on my days off. The guy was really nice and really lonely. His wife wasn't doing good and none of his kids were able to get to the US. He called me red even after I'd changed my hair and would tell me all about his life in Puerto Rico and his kids. After a lifetime of shitty guests it was a really great experience. His wife ended up passing away in the hospital and he made sure to wait for me to come into work to leave and thank me for the dinners and let me know that I'd made a hard time a little bit better.
Catch me outside, how about that?
I tried to warn someone not to dispute his no-show charge, but they never listen.
Be gone!
Long story. I work at a big brand name hotel in a beach town. In the summer, our rates skyrocket to almost $300 a night, and we are usually sold out. Someone booked 2 rooms for a long weekend and decided not to show or bother calling to cancel. Our no-show policy is pretty standard: one night's cost for each room you booked. This gentleman was charged over $500 total for his 2 no-show rooms. It sucks, and it's a lot of money, but it's 100% his fault. The gentleman called me a couple weeks later when he got his credit card bill. I explained to him our policy, and that he wouldn't be getting a refund. He went off, "You don't know who you're messing with, I'm not paying you, idiot," yada yada. Eventually told me he was just going to dispute it with his credit card company. This is basically what I said to him: "Sir, if you want to dispute the charge with your bank, you have every right to do that. I would not personally recommend it though. If this was a case of a stolen credit card, I would agree with you, but we have documentation showing you were informed of the no-show policy. However, if you wish to pass this issue along to the bank, I will gladly deal with them. When you dispute a charge, the bank will front you the money while they investigate." When he got money from the bank right after he filed a dispute, he called me to gloat. He told me how stupid I was, yada yada. What I don't think he understood is that the money is pretty much a loan, under the assumption that his charges really were fraudulent, which they weren't. I easily won the dispute, proving that he willfully did purchase these rooms and was informed of the no-show policy. Then the bank billed him back for the money they fronted him. He called me again. Lucky me. He told me that the bank was billing him and that I had to pay it. He said, because it all started with my hotel, it was our responsibility to pay his bank bill. At this point I didn't even know what more to say. I just said no, have a good day, and hung up. Down the road, he called again, saying that his credit card company was threatening to turn over the bill to collections if he didn't pay. Now he wanted us to pay $800 because of the interest. I told him that his personal finances are his own business, and to stop calling. I tried to warn him in the beginning.